thank you for joining me for this presentation this afternoon. As you can see in this quotation, women play crucial roles in small-scale fisheries in Fiji, yet their contributions are largely invisible, often ignored and unrecognized. As you can see at the global scale in these two documents from the FAO, women play a key role in small-scale fisheries. 4 out of 10 people in small-scale fisheries are women. This represents about 45 million at the global scale, at the global level. And women are involved in subsistence fishing, but also in commercial fishing, as well as in pre- and post-harvest activities. And they are also involved in care work that is critical for sustaining small-scale fisheries activities, but is often overlooked. But this women's work and contribution to small-scale fisheries undergoes what FAO calls a cycle of invisibility. Their work is usually underpaid and undervalued compared to the men's work. Therefore, they are usually underrepresented in official statistics, and therefore they are underrepresented in policy making and policy implementation, and thus their work remains underpaid and undervalued. An increasing number of publications highlight the need to count the women's contribution to small-scale fisheries, especially in Fiji, but not only in this country or in the Pacific Islands, but also at the global level. And some publications also highlight the need to better hear the voices of the women. They show why women's voices matter in small-scale fisheries management, not only in terms of social inclusion or gender equity, but also because women's participation has the potential to contribute to improving small-scale fisheries management strategies. In this project, Sub-Pacific, that was carried out between 2018 and 2022, with the long name being the Sea of Connections, Contextualizing Fisheries in the South Pacific Region, we tried to contribute to these efforts from marine social sciences and marine sciences to better highlight and make visible the contributions of women in small-scale fisheries. The larger or main objective of this project was to explore the large web of social, policy and geopolitical connections within which fishing and fisheries management practices occur, with a specific geographical focus in 3 study areas: Fiji, New Caledonia and Vanuatu, around 3 thematic areas: the social values of places and resources related to fisheries, coastal and oceanic fisheries, the links and tensions between fishing and conservation issues, and the role of fisheries in the marine spatial planning strategies in the making. Our willingness to make these contributions of women, especially in Fiji, in small-scale fisheries more visible, was encoded in this framework of gender equity in small-scale fisheries, very well illustrated here by Sangeeta Mangubai. So on the left, you can see a man, a woman, and a child with equal inputs for their fishing activities. But as you can see, there is an unequal catch. The man has a lot more fish than the woman and the child. But on the other side, there is an equity in inputs, and therefore there is an equality in outcomes in the catch of the man, the woman, and the child. And similarly, in our research, we argue that if we aim to make women's fishing practices as visible as those of men, there is a need for gender equity and not gender equality in the attention we pay to these fishers. So now I will present 3 complementary approaches we developed as part of Sub-Pacific, this project we finished 2 years ago, to make women's contribution to small-scale fisheries more visible and better recognized in Fiji. The first approach is an assessment of the monetary and non-monetary value of selected marine resources in Kandavu, the third largest island in Fiji. And as you can see, I'm the only one today with you, but that's a collective work, and that work was published especially with colleagues from USP. For this work, we focused on Nakasaleka district in the eastern part of Kandavu, where the population is about 1,500. So we conducted a survey with about 10% of this population, including about 45% of men and 55% of women. This work allowed an estimation of the total annual gross value of marine resources harvested in this district in 2019, and this estimation is around 60 million Fijian dollars, which shows that the previous estimates were usually on. Let me try again. This shows that the previous estimates were really low and underestimates. So, of course, we published many other results in this paper, but I would like to highlight that because we can quantify both sold and unsold, especially the fish consumed and invertebrate consumed by the household and shared, we could highlight the women's contribution to small-scale fisheries in this district. We could show that the women sell less but share more of their catch compared to men, which is key to food security. We could also show that women provided 22% of the annual catch of reef fish, which make up to 70% of the total value. And they also provide most of the annual catch of invertebrates, which make up 17% of the total value. And the catch, all of the catch for octopus, sea urchins, and mixed shells were provided by women, and none of them were sold. And we also wanted to highlight that examining women's fishing practices pointed to the importance of taking into account cultural keystone species in value assessments of coastal fisheries, in addition to economically valuable species. Our second approach was a qualitative or ethnographic study of women's active engagement with the sea through fishing in another Fijian island, Nga Island, the fifth largest island. And this was based on the data collected by my colleague Annette Breckvold in the early 2000s and my own data collected between 2016 and 2018. So we mainly focused on one village of this island, Malawai, in Tikina Vanuatu, in the district of Vanuatu. With this publication, we wanted to highlight the need for a deep understanding of what women fishers do and what fishing is about and means to them. Because for these women in Malawai on the island, fishing is far more than just an economic or production activity or a source of food and income. We could highlight that fishing is their only form of active engagement with the sea, which involves a place-space-time nexus and interrelated bodily, sensuous, cognitive, emotional, and spiritual dimensions. Fishing is also for them a gendered and more than human field of sociality, involving interactions with other women, including knowledge sharing, as well as with the sea's sentient constituents, be they saltwater, fish, god, or others. And fishing was also for them a way of observing change and caring for the sea, involving frictions with local management strategies and national fisheries regulations. But these frictions lead these women to adjust their fishing practices over time and might even reinforce their caring and coping attitude toward their marine environment. And finally, with this project, we also wanted to provide some insights into the views of small-scale fisheries and fishing practices of school children. And this work was published in this collective paper, once again with many different contributors, including colleagues and students from USP. So we collected about 300 drawings in Fiji and New Caledonia, but today I'm going to focus only on Fiji. And we also did some observations in our different study sites, even if it's always a bit difficult for adults to observe children's activities. And we would like to highlight today that the children's drawings, combined with short interviews, confirm that at least some girls engage in fishing from a very early age, often accompanied by friends or relatives, mainly their sisters or cousins, their mothers and grandmothers. And this allows from mechanisms of knowledge transmission. And these children's drawings also suggest that children are early aware of the gender norms regarding fishing gear, fishing techniques, and fishing grounds. And also that the invisibility of women's contributions is well encoded in local representations of small-scale fisheries. This is, for example, shown in the fact that school boys included mainly boys and men only fishing in their drawings, whereas the school girls included both men and women, boys and girls fishing in their drawings. And I would like to thank you for being with us today, and also all my colleagues and the students who contributed to these different approaches, and also the women we met and with whom we shared some practices and knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elodie. Does anyone has a question for Elodie?
The fishing practices are fishing techniques are a difference between men and women. Classically, on Pacific Island, women are more used to use working fishing. That's known as I mean. But not a lot of reef fishing. So what did you say is the difference of techniques, of practices for fishing between men and women?
Oh, there are many different techniques of fishing. In Malawi, for example, we worked with 2 fisher women on the different techniques, and there were more than 20 different fishing techniques for women. But there is the idea of an opposition between women fishing close to the village, using mainly fishing nets and fishing line, and targeting smaller fish and invertebrates. Whereas men would be fishing using boats further from the village, often outside the reef, to sell some fish. But in fact, that's a bit more complicated than that. Some men also fish close to the village to feed their family, using mainly fish gun. And for the women, some of them also go outside the reef with a small bamboo raft or with somebody's boat. And some of them also sell their catch. So that's a bit more complicated than that. But yes, the women fish in Fiji. They target fish as well as invertebrates. They don't target only invertebrates. But when you say, for example, a woman is line fishing, in fact, there are different ways of line fishing. You can fish with the line only above the water, from the sand or in the water. You can also fish underwater with your line. So there are many different fishing techniques.
And what about free diving? Because we know in Fiji, the young men, they free dive a lot to catch fish. And what about the free diving technique for women? Is this something that you've encountered, or it's really rare?
It's very rare.
Yeah.
I met only one woman who used to free dive with a spear gun with her husband, and she was considered a tomboy by people in the village.
Makes sense.
She was considered
A tomboy, un garçon manqué.
Ah, okay.
I have a question actually about the evaluation of monetary and non-monetary value. Which particular methodology did you use for this evaluation? Because we had the chance of within the Maeva project to talk about this drawing method, the use of drawings from children. But I was wondering what is the framework you used for this monetary and non-monetary value of marine resources?
The main method for that was a household survey based on a survey questionnaire used in Madagascar, and that was adapted to Fiji. And I cannot say a lot about that because I was more involved in the semi-structured interviews we conducted. So if you have questions about the specific methodology, of course it's mentioned in the paper, or you can contact Simon Harding.
What's the date of publication?
2022.
Thank you. I have a look.
And the idea was to have these two methods to make sure that we would also capture the social-cultural value of some of these keystone species that are not commercially valued, but that are important for the local communities. So I was more involved in this side of the methodologies. But of course, we worked together on the questionnaire, and then we worked together in Nakasalika district for the survey, and we conducted the interviews and the household survey at the same time with the same people involved.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. I've seen one of the slides there where there's a name or a father, a wife, and a kid is, and the kid couldn't fish because he needs to stay a bit more with some things going on. My question is, do you also assess what time of the day the kids or the woman goes fishing? And if the kids or the woman also fish to sell for money, or mostly they fish in the evening, purposely to get the protein on the table for the family. Second is, have you also compared or looked into women that stays in the village full time, that they go fishing? What about those who stay in the urban areas and goes to the village? Do they participate in fishing as well? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. So for the time of the day, it really depends on people. Some women fish early morning, some fish during the day, some fish at night, especially when they don't have to care for their children. So it really depends on the women. And I should also say that some women are considered as experts, and they fish every day, they fish a lot, and others fish only now and then when they feel like going fishing with the others. So when we say women fishers, sometimes it's a bit tricky because we believe that all of them do the same things, but that's not true. And for the children, most of them collect invertebrates or fish after school or during the weekend on Saturday to prepare for the Sunday, where for Sunday meal usually people have fish after going to church. And for the women who spend time in other areas, we worked in islands that are not on the main island, not on Viti Levu. So because they are not close to an urban area, they don't go often to this urban area. But sometimes they go for a period of time, for example, when they are sick and they have to go to the hospital, or where they have to go to town for a specific meeting or something like that. When they come back, of course, they fish again. And there is also a difference between the women who were born in these villages and the women who were married in these villages. Because those who were born there, they are used to the environment and they are used to fish there. But for the others, some of them are from urban areas or other islands, and they were not used to fish, so they had to learn from the other women when they arrived. And some of them fish a lot now, and some of them just fish only occasionally.
I have a quick question. You mentioned differences between expert fishing women and non-expert. Are some women recognized as experts by men too? If you ask the men who are the expert fishers in your community, would they mention expert women fishers or not at all?
I would say yes. But once again, that's only based on my knowledge of specific villages and specific case studies. But just for another anecdote maybe, in another island not mentioned today, where we did the study on reach-to-reef management, and that's an organic island, so a very specific and interesting case study. We went there in 2019 for the project, and we went back there in 2023 to share the results of the project. And the men in the village where we were based told us that now the women are on holidays, they no longer fish, the men fish, and now only the men fish. And of course, when you have a look and see who is going fishing, some women still go fishing, but they are no longer recognized as fishers, so they are no longer recognized as experts. So it really depends from one village to another one, I guess. But the ones mentioned here, yes, people would say you should speak to this woman. She really fishes a lot and she knows a lot about the sea and about fishing.
My last one. Have you looked into fishing techniques? Like maybe we now have modern fishing techniques. Are those women still using like indigenous, traditional fishing techniques, or they all moved into modernized fishing techniques? And second is, have they noticed any change in sustainability of the fish where they fish because of the modern fishing techniques? Or they still have the fish there by using traditional or modern techniques?
Okay. Of course, now fishing nets are no longer made of natural plants. Of course, the fishing lines are modern in a way that they are made of plastics, but still the women fish probably in using some of the techniques they used when the older ones were young. So for example, women who are in their 60s now still fish in the same way as they were fishing when they were younger women. So that's not a new change, that's probably an older change. But there is a big change with fish guns, harpoons. And that's what people mention, that it's a new fishing techniques, because in the past people had harpoons but not fish guns, and that's mainly the men who use that. And in some places, for example in the La Roupe, one of the provinces, they established a ban on night spear fishing because people believe that it's really not sustainable to fish at night using these spear guns. So that's the one that is the most probably discussed at the moment, but not really the fishing lines or fishing nets used by women. And another answer to your question, in the places where I work, especially on Ngao, during Christmas, I've never been there during Christmas, but people told me a lot about that. They use a fishing technique called Yavirau. So they use different leaves, and they have like a really, really big net, and everybody is involved. The men, the women, and the children. And they gather fish together and they eat together. So they still use these very old fishing techniques.
Thank you very much. Because that fishing technique that you just mentioned is similar to us in some islands. We have a fisheries department in Somaliland National University, so we are still teaching indigenous way of fishing, so that knowledge don't degrade. Even students or new young generations of those who sing also learn how to fish the ancestors' fishing techniques. Even we also employ new fishing techniques, but the traditional and the modern are still there. Mm-hmm. And they can be applied in different times. Like you mentioned Christmas, these traditional ones are being used because it's very important for communities to involve and celebrate.